What's going on, y'all? Today we get the pleasure to talk to Professor Alfonso Siverls, very well-rounded brother. He's traveled a lot. He has a ton of experiences, and he's gonna share them with us today. So hang out. So what's going on, man?
Hey, everything is good. It's always a good day when I wake up. I got a simple measurement. You get a certain point, man. This eye open, so far so good. This one comes open, hey, it's a good day, man.
Oh man. So thanks for hanging out with me.
Hey, it's always.
So
Always.
so tell the people a little bit about who you are, your background.
Man, my name is Alfonso. Born in Harlem Hospital, 1946. Which is a long ass time ago. Spent the first 2 years of my life in Harlem, and then my family moved to Brooklyn, Marcy Projects. I came from a large family, 11 brothers and sisters. There was 12 of us. Grew up in the Marcy Projects, went to Boys High. Typical Brooklyn guy. Ended up, stumbling into college and finishing college and went on to grad school. Lived in California for a while, a couple of years, San Francisco. Hitchhiked all over Europe, Africa. Was married, had 2 kids. And I spent a lot of time at Brick.
So that was a lot in a little quick explanation. So what was the motivation? First of all, that's dope that you were able to just hitchhike, just get up and just
It didn't just happen. It was not planned.
Okay.
I read a book, a small book that's out of print, and it was by Langston Hughes called "I Wonder as I Wander." It's hard as hell to find now because they don't print it anymore. And it was about his travels in Europe, and I was curious as hell. I was always interested, and I always wanted to go to Africa. And if I go to Africa, I'm not going the direct route. I'm going the long way. And that's what I did in 1972, 73. I didn't have much money. I worked a year, saved every penny. Then sold everything, kept my albums and my books. And at that time, you can get an airplane ticket that was good for a year. So I bought a round-trip ticket from Amsterdam to New York, from New York to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam into New York. And I could return anytime within a 12-month period. I had no plans. I had a map. And that was it. I landed in the airport in Amsterdam where nothing was in English with a map. And I figured it out from there. And it was an adventure. I'll tell you, it was an adventure. I went through about 10 countries in Europe. Some good, some bad, some, I went all the way down. I hitchhiked and took the train a little bit, but mainly hitchhiked. I had a sleeping bag, that whole bit kind of stuff. But I was always an adventurous person, man. All my friends, I asked them to come with me, man. None of them wanted to do it. They thought I was crazy. But I made it, and then I crossed from Spain to Africa, and spent about 3 months in Africa. I did get to Liberia. That was far south as I got before my money was running out. But then I headed back, came back through Europe, and came back home, man. I came back home with a whole different viewpoint. I mean, I thought I knew black people, but that trip, I met blacks in England at that time. This is the early 70s, man, and I didn't even realize there were blacks in England who've been there for a long time, descendants of slaves from the West Indies. Blacks in France, from Africans. So it was a trip, man. I went, parts of southern Spain and saw the influence of the Moors and the Arabs when they occupied it, man. It's real. It's real. So, but probably the most amazing part of that trip, and this was like 4 months, 5 months, is I took a ferry. Now here's the tip of Europe, Spain, and then there's the Mediterranean. And in the middle of the Mediterranean is Gibraltar, which is nothing but a huge rock. And people live up top. And then on the other side is North Africa. And on a particular day, I took the ferry. When we got to Gibraltar, there was like a natural fog, a haze, and you couldn't see. And but when you came out of the ferry, you can see Africa. Wow. And that was just an amazing experience, man. I landed in Morocco. I didn't know anything about Morocco, man. But Morocco wasn't. In Morocco, the Moroccans go from white to black, and every shade in between. So they don't even talk about color. Yeah. They're all Moroccans. They don't even. It's not. Whole different mindset, and that was something I had to get used to. And I met kids who spoke 4 languages, 4 and 5 languages. I'm from Brooklyn, man. You speak English, and I knew a few folks that spoke Spanish, but that was it. It was an education, to say the least. I encourage people to travel as much as they can, because you no longer see the world just from your block. And when you start seeing the world from other places, now we have a lot of access to people and information, and there's much more immigration. But when I grew up, it was just black folks and Puerto Ricans. That was it. And white folks. It wasn't all these folks from all these other countries. They weren't here at that particular time. So that experience was a great experience.
So the initial motivation for the trip was
reading the book.
Just reading
Langston
the book.
Hughes. Yeah. I've always been a fan of Langston Hughes. I've been a fan of the Harlem Renaissance and the writers of the Harlem Renaissance. They just speak to me.
So what books are you reading now?
Well, actually, I'm rereading a book. My favorite female writer is oh God, what's her name? She won the Nobel Peace Prize. She did Love. Macmillan? Morrison. Toni Morrison. How can I not remember her name? Toni Morrison. I've never read a writer like her, because I can read her stories. I'm reading the story Love, and the way she writes and the imagery, I see it in my head. It's like I can see what she's saying. It's just me, and just the way her writing affects me. I think I understand why she won the Nobel Peace Prize of Literature. I think she was amazing. She was absolutely amazing. So I'm reading that. I'm reading a book on unconscious bias. I think those are the 2 books I'm reading right now.
Hey guys, here's your chance to win a free Illflix photo shoot. Yes, you've heard right. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and like us on Facebook. That's it. Good luck.
You said you was reading a book on
Unconscious
bias. So, what is that? What is unconscious bias?
Well, it's the best way to explain unconscious bias is that it's bias. In other words, you are discriminating to some extent, or showing preferences, or doing some behavior or some action without really realizing that you're doing it. It's occurring on an unaware, unconscious level. Oh no, I'm not prejudiced, but your actions show otherwise. And you really believe you're not prejudiced. You're not even aware of your bias action. That's whatever it may be bias. It's a lot of stuff occurs. Some people believe a lot of stuff occurs on an unconscious unconscious level. And unconscious bias really has a lot to do with, in my opinion, with white folks as opposed to black folks. Not to say that black folks can't be biased, but we're more likely to be the victim of bias than white folks. And, you know, they have to come to terms with, we can be angry over slavery and all the stuff that's going on, and rightfully so, but they have to come to terms with, hey, this is a democracy, this is America, all people are equal, we're Christians, yet on the other hand, we do X, Y, and Z. Somehow they have to make it right in their head. It's like we got to make this craziness right in our heads. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways of balancing that in their head is this unconscious bias.
Is that, I think Dr. Joy DeGruy referred to that as cognitive dissonance.
That's exactly what it is. Joy DeGruy was precisely right. When you got two conflicting, you got to come to some resolution. So, when slavery came about, and it was done by Christian people that said all God's children, they had to come to some thing to resolve that conflict and concepts. The issue of race and racism. I was talking earlier with Shantae, and you read history, they don't talk about race. They talk about people from Africa, people from here, people from there. They don't use the term race. Europeans invented that term to deal with the cognitive dissonance of the way they treated people of darker skin, slavery. And so that they had to make a way of separating them, separated from other people, and then thus make them inferior. And then, you know, to own them and to sell them or to do what they want because they were less than human. It made it possible. And then they passed that on from generation to generation. Not only did they believe it, you keep telling a slave, you're a slave, and you're a slave, and you're less and less. We began to believe it, and it manifests in our own self-doubt, self-hate, destructive behavior. Mm-hmm. Passed down from generation to generation. You know, we get angry at someone, and we call them a black so-and-so. Now, either black is beautiful, or it's a derogatory term. This is that, you know, dissonance that goes on in our heads right now. I mean, they did a physical job on us, but they also did a tremendous psychological job on us. You know, the trauma for 200-300 years of abuse and slavery, the effects are still here. You know, you just don't, it's not just like that, go away.
So, like, I agree, right? There are a lot of things that you know, a lot of aspects that I see that that dissidence, you know, functioning or in play. So what I also am aware of, that as a person of African descent, or quote unquote black person, or, you know, however we classify it, that we also have some implicit bias also.
Sure.
Right? So because, you know, for a long time I would junk all light-skinned European people in the same box and call them all white people. But that's not even accurate, right? And I think that's a real simple way to label people, right?
Absolutely.
Because then you got people from Czech, you got people from Russia, you got people from Italy, you got people from, you know, like, it's a big space over there. There are tons of different people. It is the same exact thing like when a person of non-African descent classifies all dark-skinned people as black. Like, you're just black or African American. No, bro, you got Jamaicans, you got, you know what I mean? But if you go far enough back, everybody was from the same place, right? Then you go far enough back, all quote-unquote races are from the same place, right? So essentially, we are all from the same thing. We just move a little bit over here, we move a little bit over there, you know, the language changes.
Absolutely right. Man, you hit the nail on the head. Man, you know, we internalize what was done to us, and we do it to ourselves and others. because that becomes the motto we got up here, man. And when you go back further enough down the tree, modern man came out of Southern Africa, and we're all rooted. You want to see how close we are? You know, as people speak in terms of genes and genetics, every human being on the planet, genetically speaking, in other words, their genes are 99.9% the same. All human differences is 0.1%. And here's the other thing that tells us about how close we are. Look at blood. Blood. 4 types of blood. I could be in a car accident, and in the car is my brother, a white woman, and a Chinese man. And the only one that can save my life, who have my blood type, may be that Chinese man, not my biological brother. It did, you know, it goes back, and you go back in history, the gaps begin to close and close and close. There is, it's a beautiful term that they use for the first woman, modern woman. They call her mitochondria Eve. And the mitochondria is a part of the female anatomy. It's also part of the male anatomy, but males don't pass it down. But it's part of the female anatomy, and it's passed down from generation to generation. Here's the thing: the mitochondria in every female on the planet is identical. Identical. So you know, you're right. You go back, brother. It all. We fell into this game, and we use this game. You know, we use this color game. And if you really want to take stuff serious, man, you look at physics. And physics tell us that color doesn't exist in objects. It's the result of light structures of our eye and our brain. Someone can come from another planet, land here with a different structure, eye and brain. Don't know what the hell you're talking about when you say black or white. They see something completely different. So, you know, hey, it's mind-boggling. But the thing of it is, man, the one thing about being human, at least I think and have learned, is that we always have the capacity to change and grow.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us going, no matter what your story is, your history is, or we always have the capacity to change and grow regardless of age.
Yeah.
You know? Change is always possible, man. So there's always hope. Unless we blow ourselves up or blow the planet up, there's always hope.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
So another question, you know, talking about, like the destruction of the planet. There's been an awful lot of hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes, and I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, right? But I start to think that extracting oil from the ground may or may not have something to do with it. Because like if you look at like a car, the oil serves a purpose inside the car.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Keeps it, I don't know if it keeps it cool, it keeps the oil, the things from causing friction, which causes overheat. Cause something to overheat, and inevitably your engine locks, or it overheats, and then you can't drive. But so what happens in the earth when we remove all of that oil, if oil is serving the same purpose?
Okay, remember, I think you got to go back further and understand what originally oil is. Oil is the organic remains of dinosaurs. So it goes you to show how many dinosaurs occupied this planet. And they occupied it, and there was no humans. And when life, we know life on this planet, at least we know scientifically speaking, has been wiped out at least on 2 occasions. And I'm not talking about no religious flood. It was probably some meteorite or something that destroyed life. But oil is the organic remains of dinosaurs. So when we extract it, but you're right in the sense that in the process of extracting it, we do give off gases that affects the environment and the atmosphere, CO2 levels, things of that nature. That's real stuff, man. This has been the hottest year in terms of warming on the planet. Global warming doesn't mean the planet is just getting warmer. Global warming means that we're going to have extremes in weather, more hurricanes, more extreme heat, more extreme cold, and all of that affects us. California is burning. Why? Extreme heat and dryness, lack of rain, global warming. And all those folks with all those multi-million-dollar homes, nothing they can do. And here's the thing, you know, in a few places, there were so many homes that burned that the insurance companies went bankrupt, and so nobody got nothing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you understand that?
Yeah.
You know, when you get 1,000 homes burnt to the ground, total loss, and then basically insured by the same folks,
They ain't got the
cover,
money.
They can't cover that. What do? They declare bankruptcy. But you know, we got to do something with the planet, and we're approaching almost the point of no return. And what does that mean? That means the CO2 levels. Look at the levels of asthma. Some people relate even levels of cancer to changes in holes in the ozone layer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because it lets the harmful rays from the sun reach us. But the planet can die. We know that, you know. But you got this guy in office who doesn't want to accept it, you know. Everybody else realizes it. They may not do everything they want to do or could do, but they realize it. But the guy in office, man, and it's not going to affect you and me. It may affect your great grandkids.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of world we're going to leave them. You know, what they're going to think of, you know, who we were and what we did. We've had the technology to make every car electric.
Mm-hmm. Tesla.
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla?
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it?
We've had the technology around. We can do that. All right? What's stopping us?
Big business.
Oil, big business.
Mhm.
Big business. Big business stops everything in the name of profit. Well, we can only take small steps, and hopefully they add up to big steps. You know.
So there's a inevitability in everything, right? So at some point we're gonna suck all the oil out of the ground, right? It doesn't keep just reproducing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what? Is it at that point, after they've extracted all the possible oil that they can find in the ground, then we go over to solar, everything, or we go over to turbines?
They're gonna find something else to sell. We're in a system where we sell necessities. And you gotta understand that we sell necessities. I was just reading an article about the internet. You know, the first internet, when it was first done, it was free. Net zero. Oh, it was free. You know, it was free. And then they went to bed with communication companies, and they sold bands. Not only did they sell the band, they sold it so they sell you the band, and then they sell the content on the band. Mm-hmm. All right? And that's what I like about Bernie Sanders. I don't want to make a political thing here, but one of the things he wants to do is make the internet a public utility. Public utility like electricity, like gas. So you may pay $20 a month, everyone pays $20 a month, and everyone gets good, fast internet services, at least 100 MBBs, MPBs.
Megabytes per second.
Everybody gets it.
So with that, right? Looking at it from a technological standpoint, that may stop the aggressive research to find a bigger, better, faster version of it. Like what motivates that now, or to me, what it appears, what motivates that now is the ability to overshadow your competitors. Because if you're selling it at 100 megabytes, and I figured out a way to get it 200 megabytes, I can take all of your clients, right? And then you'll do it, inevitably you'll do the same thing to me if you can, if technology. So, but because we're on this drive, because it's in a private sector, and because everybody's trying to capitalize on it as much as possible. You know, there is that consistent motivation, that consistent push. But when it becomes a public utility, like we had the same ass electrical system since, because there's no extra money to be made there.
That's the challenge. How do we don't just duplicate the past, but improve the past? How do we put in public utilities and public services that has built-in incentives?
Yeah,
that's the challenge. And I don't see him as an either or. I think we can do exactly that. We can put in systems and still have the motivate people and have the incentive for people to do it.
Yeah, I think it goes down to a me, my, and I thing. Meaning, you know, what is the reason I'm getting involved in this thing? You know, whether it be to figure out better ways to distribute or create, you know, energy systems. You know, like, cool, I go here because they're paying me. Yeah. Right? Or I'm going here because I'm excited about doing the research, but it's a passion project. But if it doesn't strike you in that emotional level, the only other reason that you're going to go do that is because they're going to pay your bills.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
That's always the case. Yeah. Yeah. But I think there's enough people with passion on enough things that if we take some stuff and pull it out of the private sector, it'll still go very well.
You're right, and I see that in the music industry, and that's why there's two separate cultures, two conflicting cultures in the music industry. There is the underground, jazz, soul, funk, right. You know, underground hip hop freestylists, and then you have the corporate side of it, which is the more polished, big label, big budget artists.
But who's pushing the envelope? The underground folks?
The underground folks are always pushing the envelope.
Exactly.
But what happens was when they see the envelope, they buy it. Yeah. Because they have the capital.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
I know. That's you know, the system we live in, man, builds those kinds of mechanisms for corporations, and because we are corporate driven. But that's not the only system, man. You know, I was reading an article that was about rent in Berlin, Germany, and the people are bitching online about gentrification, same way we are. So you know what they did?
What?
They froze rent in Berlin for 5 years. Rent is frozen. Landlords cannot go up in rent for 5 years. There's solutions. There's radical solutions.
Yeah.
You know, that's almost unthinkable.
So
it's unthinkable because we have not done it or have the courage to do it.
Well, it's kind of like what rent stabilization is, right? Like for you know, like Section 8. You know, this is what the rent is. It can't go higher than this. It's not market value rent. Yeah. Right. So, you know, I hate to say,
what is market value? Is what you can get.
That's the thing. So inevitability, right? So at the end of 5 years, what happens? Does the rent go from $200 to $2,000?
I don't know. Right? That's the kind of stuff you got to build into it. But in order to stop the bleeding, in some cases you got to stop the bleeding. In this city, we got to stop the bleeding. We got 60,000 homeless people. Yeah. A lot of them can't find homes. You know, families in shelters. We got to stop the bleeding. And then we look for ways. I don't think you're going to get all in one at one time. You got to lay something down there and then build on it, build on it, build on it. It's an ongoing process, and that's true for all of our issues and concerns, you know. But you know, who knows? But I mentioned Berlin because there's other places in the world people are dealing with the same problems but differently, you know. But this is a country that has certain values that I don't generally agree with. You know, I don't generally agree with what a lot of folks stand for. I don't agree with this guns. I don't agree with the idea of exceptionalism. I don't agree that, you view that America is the best place in the world, or the only place to be. There's a lot that I don't agree with, and there's some things I do agree with. But, hey, I'm on the back end of life, I tell people. So I can say what I want, try to do what I can do, and then pass the torch.
I get it. Yo, I appreciate you, taking time out your day to come hang out.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, hopefully we do this again real soon.
Hopefully, yeah. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for hanging out with us. See you guys next time.
Sometimes I talk.
I want to thank Professor Siverls for hanging out with us today. Like always, I learn a lot. It's always important to have conversations. You get to learn, things, different perspectives, especially from people who've lived a lot longer than you. You get to learn a lot of things that there was no way for you to be there. So you get to, get that experience, So I appreciate him for hanging out with us. Until next time, peace.